And we're joined today here by Emma O'Kelly, author of this amazing book, The Sauna, The Power of Deep Heat, and editor of a Wallpaper. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here, seeing around the sauna universe.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. So let's jump straight into this. You've written this amazing book, and it is a really amazing book, covering all aspects of sauna, particularly in the kind of cultural aspects. Tell us about why you decided to write this book. How did you find out about sauna?
It started in Finland in 2016, and I went to an island called Savisalo, which is an art island outside Helsinki, and did a story for Wallpaper, and ended up in the sauna with the artists, drinking vodka, having really jumping in a lake, having a brilliant time. And when I left, I went back to London, and I thought, what?
That's epic.
that was epic. Yeah. And so I got in touch with Maija through a curator. She put us in touch, Maija, the photographer.
Yeah, she's a photographer.
She's Maija Astikainen, and she lives in Helsinki. And we then met at a design event in Helsinki and said, I said, what do you think? Should we try and do a book about saunas, just from an aesthetic point of view, really, because I didn't understand anything about sauna rituals or culture at that point. It was just those beautiful cabins perched on windswept archipelagos. We loved the idea of it. So she shot some pieces around Helsinki. We pitched the book to lots of publishers who all said no. And we forgot about it. And then in 2019, UNESCO listed Finnish sauna culture on its list of intangible cultural practices worth protecting. And we wrote a piece for a magazine called Hole and Corner, and then it re-sparked the interest, really, between Maija and I. Yeah. So we pitched the book again, and here we are.
Yeah, wow. Excellent.
So it was a long process.
So that first artist sauna, when was that?
That was in 2016.
2016. Okay, so it's been a long time coming.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. And so you left that experience, and that planted the seed. And then from there to making this book, you've gone and you must have been in hundreds of saunas, right? All across the Baltics and the Nordics.
You could say it was a baptism of fire, to make a corny joke. Because then when we were commissioned to write the book, we had to come up with a plan quickly. And so luckily Maija, being Finnish, was born in the sauna pretty much. Not literally, but she knows her sauna culture inside out and has a tent sauna in her garden and a sauna in her house, and is extremely... knows a good sauna from a bad sauna. Yeah. So very knowledgeable. Yeah. So that was a good starting point, because I knew absolutely nothing. Yeah. And my first experience was at Hackney Community Baths, and I went there one February evening and stayed too long in the cold plunge, because I'm a cold swimmer, so I'm used to the cold but not the heat. Yeah. So I then totally got the shivers, and then had to go back in the sauna in my parka and my hat to warm up, which was...
Wow. I've had that where I've been like shivering all night long if you finish, and it's because you're just sending your hypothalamus into like crazy overdrive, and I know exactly what you get those shivers you just can't shake. Yeah.
Yes. So I thought, okay, this is not a good start. How am I going to do this book if I can't actually even be in the sauna? Yeah. So anyway, it improved. Yeah. We went to Norway and we met Knut and Helgrim from Badstu Folk, who have a beautiful community of saunas in Vang, which is 3 hours from Oslo, and it's an idyllic setting, a small village. Beautiful. And Maija got her drone out and we were filming, and that was the proper introduction to Nordic saunas in the Nordics. Yeah. And it was absolutely magical experience.
And I guess there it's a different, so they're set up commercially, right? Or was there lots of people there? Was it
nobody was there?
So it's nice and peaceful. And
they're more. One of them is a kind of architectural pilgrimage site in a way, for want of a better word. But where we first started was a lake sauna on Knut's private farm.
Okay.
And then Halgrim had his own sauna made out of a kind of holiday cabin, and then people in the village are building their own saunas, and everybody's working together to build saunas for each other.
Okay, cool.
And lots of that is using reclaimed materials and everything. So they're creating this sauna community, and there's obviously lots of beautiful waterfalls and rivers to swim in, and so it's really, and they're very young, and they want, not very young, but they all sort of have decided they don't want to live the city life in Oslo, and they've chosen this other life, where one of them said the snow falls more slowly.
That's beautiful.
Yes,
it's very poetic.
So
they're living the good life out.
They are definitely living the good life.
Yeah, nice.
And saunaing like crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then we also went from Norway. We went to Estonia, which was where we had our first smoke sauna, which was probably the most extreme sauna experience that we had for the whole book.
Really?
So what made it extreme?
Well, for me, again, it was the heat.
The heat.
Yeah.
Because it was like sort of diving off a diving board before I'd learnt to swim, really.
Right.
But it was also the fact that everyone was naked.
Yeah.
And to be not naked felt more strange than being naked.
But that's not typical of, like, when I spend time out in Estonia, first and foremost, and my very good Estonian friends will no doubt be annoyed at me saying this, that actually a lot of their saunas there, like super heat and nudity are not two things I would normally associate with Estonian sauna. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I went to a traditional smoke sauna on Kinu Island, which is in the Baltics, and it's one of the oldest. They say it's the oldest smoke sauna in Estonia, but I'm sure there's 12 of those. So, and it was sort of lower bench only, and we had to pour lots of water to make it feel hot. It was, and then when you go in the city in Tallinn or in the cities in saunas in Estonia, they tend to be more like sort of high-end hotel sauna type spaces. So, maybe I've just not been going to the right place.
Well, we've been going to different places for sure. Because in Tallinn, we went to a really brilliant sauna called Haldake, which is an old vaudeville theatre.
I've been there.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And then Mark, my husband went to quite a hardcore sauna, Kalmar Sauna. Have you been there as well?
I haven't been to that one, no.
And that was extremely hot, and I think he felt quite unsafe. but anyway, that was also fantastic. Visually, that was fantastic. Very Soviet-era architecture and very strict about, I got shouted at because I tried to wear a swimming costume in the wrong section, and I used the wrong whisk, and I used the wrong bucket, and I learnt throughout this sauna journey that there's an etiquette, and it varies a bit between cultures, but largely there are many things that are the same. And
there's a consensus.
Yes, and cleanliness obviously is number one, and so picking up someone's whisk and trying to use it didn't go down very well.
And that's perhaps somewhere where we have a lot to learn in this country. I think, hygiene is something that is heavily overlooked in a lot of saunas, spas, that sort of thing in the UK, and hopefully something that in time is improving quite a lot. But the etiquette aspect of it as well is something that we're children in that sort of learning journey, as it were, because it's all new. Did you have a preference? I know this is very contentious, but in the back of your book you've got a best of section. So clearly not afraid to throw it out there and be contentious. You've spent time in Norway, Sweden, Estonia, the Baltic states, and Finland. Tell me a little bit about how you find the differences in those sauna cultures, and whether you sort of feel any of those is more in line with what's right for you and your preferences.
Yes, they all felt very different, surprisingly different.
Yeah.
In Finland it was quiet and more serene and more
meditative.
Yeah. And then, Estonia just so happened to be quite wild. But I think, like you say, you had a different experience from me in Estonia.
Yeah, maybe.
Norway felt really experimental, and something that coming from the UK, I felt I could relate to the most, in that they're really enthusiastic. They're trying all sorts of techniques and rituals and whisking and bringing in lots of ideas. And they're also very creative about the spaces they're making. Mm-hmm. They're doing lots of very cool floating concepts and seem to be very imaginative in that area. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's a much younger culture than it is in Finland and the Baltics. And so all of them were really different. I sadly didn't get to Latvia or Lithuania, although they are very much on my list of places that I'd love to go to. Yeah. Especially for some of the rituals.
Yeah, the Bath Academy there, the whisking techniques. The whisking culture is obviously a lot more, alive there. Did you the Bastu in Sweden? Did you did you or Banyas, for example? Did you have you had an opportunity to try? Obviously, getting into Russia has not been an easy thing.
No, in London, I've been to Banya, the bathhouse in London, which is the Russian, and had the pirenye, the Russian style whisking. And a lot of people we met along the way had talked about Russian banyas and how some of them had been the most amazing experiences that they'd had. Yeah. But no, we didn't go there.
Yeah, I think there's Banya and sauna have so many parallels, don't they? That and often I've heard it said. I've heard Finns say Finnish sauna is like Banya except hotter and more steam, and then I've heard Russians say Banya is like Finnish sauna but hotter and more steam. So the jury's out in my opinion on that one. I'm not laying down any law there because that one's too contentious. And then Bastu in a lot of the other countries gets this reputation as being not quite hot enough, not quite. But you've got some great pictures, for example, Astad Vineyard, the Swedish vineyard, where they have like an underwater sauna, which looks incredible. I've never been. I would love to go. But did you see, did you pick up on any?
Well, Maija went there without me to Astad. I know. And she, like I said, her, she said it was really good. Yeah. So, and I think she tried out the hammock saunas, the underground sauna, all the different concepts that they've got there. Yeah. Said it was all really good.
Fantastic.
And a few other places in Sweden that she went to that feature in the best of section. Yeah. But I didn't go to a couple of those. But she had saunas everywhere in the book. We tried and saunaed in, either both of us or one of us. Yeah. That was one of the whole points, really. Yes. Tried and tested places. Yeah. Yeah. So,
and is there any other? So, have you spent time? Obviously, there's things like German AFGHAS sauna. Are there any other cultures outside of the known sauna territories?
Well, yes, we did. So we went to the annual AFGHAS VM, which I think you'll be going to in a couple of weeks.
That's
3
right.
Weeks.
Yeah. So we're going to the playoffs in Oslo. Just in Farrisbad, which is just southwest of Oslo, which is Lasse Eriksson's commercial sauna. and then hopefully, all being well, the finals, which is at Satamaa, which is this. I think it's more, from what I gather, it's this Viking-esque sauna there. They've got this big upturned boat-style sauna there as well, and that's south of Berlin, I think. So yeah, we'll be at those soon. So you went there.
We went there.
Yeah.
That was, well, being British, that was a really hard thing to wrap my head around. Because firstly, there's so the competition takes place in a huge event sauna that holds 200 people and you have to be naked.
Yeah.
And if you're not naked or you're trying to put a sarong around yourself, officials come over and tell you to take it off because you have to have your towel or sarong covering your bottom and your feet because they don't want any sweat from your feet landing on the benches below. So it makes perfect sense, and it's a hygiene thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, being British, for me, that was something I had to overcome. But I had been in Estonia already by then, so I was getting used to it.
Yeah.
And then the whole effect of AFGHAS, the teams and the costumes and the music and the lighting, it's kind of next level kitsch, really.
Yeah.
So it's very entertaining.
Yes.
And the crowd absolutely love it.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm for all the competitors is immense, and they all have to devise their own stories and their own scenographies. And, it's not easy to do any of those things, to be putting the ice cubes with your essences on and then wafting the steam around the sauna in the right way so that it gets everybody but doesn't burn anybody, and they have to create the peaks and the troughs. And
it's an art form, right?
It's an art form. Yeah, it's an art form. And having initially found it really alien, I totally get it now.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think it can have exactly the same deep meditative effects that a more nature-based ritual, just with whisking and maybe soft music, it can have the same effect in terms of the way the heat makes you feel, and the process that happens inside you.
Yeah.
It can be really moving, AFGHAS, as well.
Yeah. It's the theatre element of it where, it's like watching theatre except being under quite a unique type of stress and also being very vulnerable, I suppose. So, a lot of those AFGHAS Saunameisters have a very short amount of time, 10 to 15 minutes, to convey a message through the medium of music, some kind of movement and dance, and a theatre element to it, and then the sense as well. And so, from an initial, just like you, from an initially very skeptical point, and I have this really, like the first time I went to a German sauna, having spent time in Finnish saunas and in, saunas in the UK, like to go in there and have somebody just shouting at me, and I was like, they're going like, what's going on? And I speak okay German, and I still didn't know what this woman was shouting at me. And a guy on the top bench went, "She's telling you to take your shorts off." And I was like, all right, okay. So I had to disrobe in front of everybody, and like sort of shower wet swimming shorts that kind of sticking on the way, like the least graceful thing I've ever done in front of a room of people. And then again, sit on the benches, and then she starts shouting again, and I'm like, guys, you're gonna have to help me. She's like, the towel, you have to sit on the towel. I'm like, oh, all right, okay, And then she just walked over to me, and she just grabbed my hand and squeezed a load of honey in my hand, and I'm there going like, looking around at everyone. And the next guy gets the honey, and he starts like lathering himself up with the honey, and I'm like, okay. So from that initial like very skeptical position, I now, like you, I get what they're doing there, and I think that actually it's a really, we've talked about this before on the podcast. Mika Meskinen from the British Sauna Society has this really excellent phrase, which is that sauna is the the sauna itself is the hardware, and you can run different software packages on it. And AFGHAS is just a different software package, and I like that so much, because it's a wholly different experience, and you go to the different experiences for different things. A meditative Finnish sauna, to unwind, and then AFGHAS.
At the AFGHAS, the people there were going from 9 for the first session right through to the last session.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Groups of friends who go every year, who book it way in advance, and that's their kind of one of the weeks of holiday. Is spent doing AFGHAS.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking that rehydration sachets and, there's some very salty mineral water brands from Eastern Europe, like Vitautas. I'm going to be,
You need to have a solid rehydration schedule and strategy.
Yeah.
Coconut water in
exactly.
every available pocket.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be fun though.
Yeah.
I guarantee you will really love it. That's the thing. You just come back and you just think, what on earth have I just done? But it was so much fun.
I'm wondering whether I'll have to shulk away and sort of find somewhere quiet to actually do some serious work as well.
Well, and like Pavel, the British competitor, one of our Team GB, was saying, it's a really good way of getting people who might not really go in the sauna, or might just go in for a couple of minutes and then think it's too hot and get out, getting them to stay in by engaging in something. And at the AFGHAS qualifiers in Rudding Park in Yorkshire, lots of the bathers were saying, well, I actually quite enjoyed that. And I stayed in much longer than I normally would, and things like that. So it can kind of distract you from the intense heat, which is working wonders on your body. So it's healthy and difficult without you realising it somehow.
And let's talk a little bit about you. Obviously, you touch on health benefits. This is a very well cited book. It's nice to see there's a good bibliography in the back, for example. You talk about the health benefits as well. Tell us a little bit about what you've learnt through that, and what's. We always find there's lots of great research papers out there, but what's current in sort of sauna health?
Well, one of the a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to a research doctor at the University of Coventry who is doing research projects using heat therapy, but hot baths, hot tubs and saunas to see the effects that it has on cardiovascular and recovery after exercise. Because there's been a lot of studies in Finland and elsewhere about how sauna is really good for cardiovascular illnesses, reducing them, and given that those are the biggest cause of death in the Western world, it kind of makes sense that we try and find ways that will help minimize those things. And so this is the first doctor in the UK that I've spoken to carrying out research, and of course it's very early stages yet, and getting the funding is difficult, and finding the saunas and the bathers to take part in the clinical trials is also really difficult.
So has he overcome that? Has he now got saunas set up there?
Not saunas. They've got a sort of hot tin box thing, which sounds a bit scary, but they are planning to work with a sauna in Coventry somewhere, but it's finding the bathers, and
well, I'm sure he'll have the students would love that.
And they have done some with, and they're trying to get a mix of a mixed demographic, which is also not so difficult in Coventry. But that, again, it's all very early stages here. But I know that the British Sauna Society are trying to introduce sauna as part of the social prescribing, along with gardening or going for walks, or just these kind of ancillary healthy things that doctors can recommend to patients, that are outside prescriptions. And if that does happen in Scandinavia, in certain places, GPs can refer patients to sauna.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, ideally, we're a long way from that.
Yes.
We're a very long way from that.
Although you say that, when we had Charlie on the podcast from Hackney Wick, from the community sauna baths there, he was talking about sort of social prescription and working in the community to help with that. So I think I'm hoping that in the UK, people. Oh, and one of the other things that we've seen is in specification for. I don't know what you'd call them, retirement homes. You've got obviously like care homes, and they're being specified with saunas in them. Really? So yeah, and this is like, so okay, they might. I don't know what I'm not at that stage of life where I'm shopping around for care homes. So I imagine there is the top tier care homes, and then there's a whole spectrum of everything below that. So I don't know where on the scale these kind of care homes are going to be, or whether they're sort of somehow like a high-end luxury care home. I don't know. But it's certainly something that we're seeing a lot more of. Well, they're doing that. Studio Puisto, who I interviewed for the book, because they do some beautiful resort saunas in Finland, which are featured in the book. But they also have done some retirement homes, and in quite a few of them, they have a solo sauna cabin with a beautiful view, and that's somewhere that people can go and evoke memories of the summer cabin and have this moment, of happy memories that the sauna there can bring on for many people in Finland. Yeah, it's like the most romantic notion, isn't it? The cabin, the sauna cabin in the woods. Yeah. I think as well the community aspect of it. When you speak with many elderly people, one of the things that they talk about is loneliness and the lack of community. Yes. And I think that we've talked about it around community in this, the community aspect of sauna, bringing people together as a replacement for the pub or the church of yesteryear. Absolutely, yes. And I think that would have a great impact on those. But they say that already. Lots of young bathers say that. They say that they need to get off their phones, so they can go into the sauna and just chat. You can chat for 20 minutes about anything. In the sauna. Younger generations are so deprived of those kind of social campfires. Yeah, nowadays. And if so much of that has been engineered now about engagement on your phone, and the campfire might be online gaming or something like that, you can't have really meaningful human interaction and contact necessarily. Exactly. And the great thing about being in the sauna is you can talk to a stranger about the weather, or you can go with a really good friend and have a really deep conversation about something really serious, and all of those things can happen at the same time in a sauna space, and then you will go out and you don't have to see each other ever again, or all sorts of levels of communication can happen in there, which is quite unique, really, given that you're all vulnerable and you're more open possibly than you would be normally, or less judgmental, and more concise, I think, because whenever I'm there trying to have a conversation with somebody, I'm like, there's an urgency pressure where you're like, I'm starting to feel like I need to get out, but I don't want to end this conversation, so it makes things a little bit more to the point. And I was actually out seeing our Irish team earlier in the week, and met up with those guys. We went straight to the sauna, this beautiful seaside sauna just south of Dublin, and it's one of those things where you're just like, and I didn't have long that I was there, so it was just perfect because we were straight in the heat, straight talking about what we needed to, and then you're straight to the point. So you do quite a few of your deals in the sauna. So, I mean, working with teams, and I would say suppliers, definitely. If we go out to Finland, we'll often go and see suppliers who will. It's part and parcel of
It's
it.
very, it's part of custom of it, isn't it?
A few weeks ago, we were out visiting suppliers in Finland and Estonia, and they all want to take you to a sauna. So we literally arrived into Helsinki, went and saw one sauna heater supplier who was there, who met up with us and took us to Lolu, and then we were like, so we were straight in to talking about how's things, how's life, how's business, how's how's the ecosystem in the UK, what's new, and that was all taking place in a big commercial sauna. So that's been part and parcel of business, and certainly for some people it's a weird thing for them to get their head around. That I remember the first few times I was going out there on business, meeting up with suppliers, and it particularly where it had been myself and a couple of the people from a company who were also guys. So Finns, when they go to sauna with people of the same gender, then they won't wear swimming costumes, for example. Whereas when it's mixed in a public, they will. So, to go somewhere to meet up with a business in Finland where you're doing business with somebody, to have a chat, walk around the factory, and then go and sit and have discussions, and maybe not intensive negotiations, but, you'd be talking about business and things, and you can be in a sauna naked with somebody. Like, to say that, for me, that's kind of normal. But if I say that in the street in the UK, people are like, What?
Well, it was very funny in the book. I the Estonian ambassador, Mr. Luby, has a igloo sauna in his garden in Kensington.
Yeah.
And I went over there for a sauna, and he didn't have a sauna with me because his assistant, who is female, had a sauna with me. And he said, with British people, he has to be very careful about inviting them for a sauna, because in his words, he said they tend to think it means very dodgy things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as soon as they know that they're not going to be in the sauna with their colleagues, but just with him, then it's much easier.
Yes. Yeah.
So for us, it's also partly the whole thing about being with our workmates that somehow creates another area of reserve and embarrassment.
Yeah. You're quite right. I think, it's one thing to go as brothers to visit suppliers where that's quite a normal thing. But I think it would probably be different if we were going with a cohort of our team from here, for example. I'd be far more inclined. Well, I know that our staff would be like, we're not taking swimming costumes off and sitting in a room with our boss, and I wouldn't want them to. I don't think that would be appropriate. So
I think I'd even extrapolate that as far as there's a interface between, again, like family is quite relaxed, and then friends. Even close friends now, I don't even ask if they would mind. I'd just go in with a swimming costume, because I don't want there to be any kind of opportunity for discomfort that would jade that experience for them, because to me, I'm so passionate about sharing the experience that if they can be more comfortable because of our slightly more shy and retiring British customs, then
Yes, I agree with you. And there were quite a few conversations at the AFGHAS VM last year amongst all the sauna bathing nations about how sauna culture in the UK is going to look, or is looking.
Yeah.
And some of the more diehards were kind of thinking that the costume-free sauna would take off here, but I don't.
I think we'll
the jury
struggle.
Was out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thoughts on that is that there's two aspects of it. So we as Brits, although people see us as very prude, is generally speaking, for most things, 50% of people don't care, and 50% of people are too polite to say anything, and that's a really good position to be in, because everyone becomes quite live and let live. But I think that kind of, it's if I went to a sauna in the UK and there was an old guy there sat on a towel and he was nude in the sauna, I wouldn't say anything and I probably wouldn't care, but I reckon somebody might, and I reckon they might say something and maybe complain about it. And so that's, those are the two sides in my mind, is that the culture actually would be kind of open to live and let live. It might not be for me, but if somebody else wants to do that, that's fine, as long as they're behaving themselves and they're just enjoying the sauna. But I'm more, look at, so Norway, for example, at Farrisbad, at the playoffs coming up, in the sauna sessions themselves, it's sort of whatever feels right for you, swimming costume or not. But when you go outside, if you want to go into the sea, you have to wear a swimming costume because you can't be in public and be nude. Mm-hmm. So there's, and the UK is the same. Like indecent exposure laws are actually quite strictly woven into the law. And in Japan, it's gender segregated, and everyone wears like, they wear like t-shirts and essentially like sauna, like full sauna outfits.
Really? In the sauna? In the sauna.
So people are going to have saunas and they're going into their hot room wearing full outfits because nudity is so taboo there. So and these guys are people who've thrown themselves into AFGHAS. Yeah. And the stories that I hear coming out of Japan is like, if there's a European who goes to the session, they're like, tell me, was it a good authentic version, like like almost desperate for the validation there, and they're sat there looking out the side of their eye in a room full of people wearing clothes, basically. So and they're obviously there's gonna be Japanese people, no doubt, and it's booming. I mean,
the
right
AFGHAS.
Now,
they had to do like the rest of us and had to be naked at the AFGHAS VM, and there were a lot of Japanese fans in the audience.
Yeah. So that must have been mind blowing for them, because it's not like that in Japan itself.
I had no idea.
Right.
That's and it's weird that. Speaking with Liz on the last podcast about Beachbox, and largely the rich bathing history of Britain, particularly in the context of Brighton, that actually there was a time where people didn't wear those, back in the days of the bathing machines going out into the sea. There's a time before people wore those pajama-looking bathing suits,
those stripy knickerbocker.
And so there's a few things like that. I heard interesting kind of it's very Radio 4 type content, but it was something to do with the attitudes towards crying, and how crying only became kind of frowned upon. A stiff upper lip type mentality in the Second World War, and that prior to that, throughout history, actually, Achilles, he was strong because he cried. And so there's kind of this weird thing where, in quite recent history, I think the Brits have we've got this kind of, I don't know, it's not, I don't know, the prudishness. I don't think it's shame. I don't know, but it's kind of politeness. It's kind of.
It's strange, especially when you fuse it with the lens of like, again, when we were talking with Liz about Turkish baths and people and steam baths, from the 1800s through to the early part of last century, is like, in your mindset, you've got this idea of, Victorians who, they wouldn't even show the bottom of their leg, let alone an ankle, let alone a calf. And then the other side of this, so I don't know. It's the short answer. What's gone on in this culture, and I'd be interested to really understand, because I think it's cyclical. I think these things go through stages. I think also the thing that a lot of the other nations, to flip the narrative, Germany has a history of what they call FKK, right, which means Freikorperkultur, free body culture, and that became big during the Soviet Union as a quiet rebellion against the rules that were set out under it. So you could go on these mandated holidays to the beaches in the northeast of Germany, and everyone there would go, and then they would go and be naked, and there was nothing you could do about it, and it was like a quiet rebellion that was going on. And in the West, they didn't have that. But then when Germany unified, it became, well, this is just how it is, and this is how we are, kind of thing. So I think, and that's a culture where you think they'd be really strict, and they're very orderly and very,
Well, it's always been like in the Baltics, the sauna became very underground and counterculture in some ways, didn't it?
Yeah.
When they tried to, in the book, I interviewed Ada Veruja, who runs Muska, which is a smoke sauna in southern Estonia, and she is trying to document all the oral traditions of Estonian smoke sauna culture, because nothing was written down because they were too afraid to write anything down.
Yeah.
And so she's documenting lots of the spells and the songs and the chants and the way that people used to tell stories, passing them down through generations in the sauna, away from the kind of Soviet eyes.
Yes.
And so it's that, and that's all being, there was definitely a feeling in Estonia and in Finland that the younger generation are trying to recreate some of these old stories and these old traditions. And the Finnish epic poem, the Kalevala, which documents lots of the Finnish customs and traditions, and was put together in the 1800s, taken from all over Finland, and lots of people are trying to reinterpret them and devise sauna rituals around them, and go back to the idea where the ancestors and the ancients believed that the sauna was a liminal space, and that the steam that you poured on the rocks was sacred and would transport you from one world into another, and that's all that was forgotten. People were saying for quite many years, and now some of those ideas are being revisited. That was really interesting for the book. That part of the whole story of, the ecstatics and the seers and the doctors and the people who would go around with bear's teeth and go into the sauna and get rid of the evil spirits. And
the esoteric aspect of it. Really. Yeah, and you can see why, when it's such a meditative space, that can put you under that kind of psychological strain. I could easily imagine people pushing themselves into a very, psychedelic state by
having
staying
visions.
in there.
For sure.
Yeah, and obviously you get that with sweat lodges in Native America, cultures over there as well. It's an interesting one. I mean, I've had conversations with people about sauna during the Soviet Union, and people describe exactly what you've said, and that there was this, at the time, a lot of those Soviet states on the Baltics had to almost hide their anything that made them have any kind of distinguishing national identity. Things they weren't allowed to have a national anthem. They weren't allowed to, it was frowned upon to speak their own language and encouraged to speak Russian. And many people were killed or sent to gulags for even doing, slight nods towards aspects of their former culture or what have you. So, but at the same time, and this is the thing that always blows my mind, it's like, Banya seems to be such a popular you'd think that they'd just be like, hey, sauna, Banya, all good, everyone, do their thing. So it's perhaps something worth digging a little deeper on.
Well, they built the and then the Estonians, being the savvy Estonians that they are, started building porches on the fronts of their saunas. This is what I was told in Estonia. So that when the Soviet officials would come round and have a sauna, they'd then cool off on the porch, and that's when the deals would be done and the negotiations would start. Like we were saying earlier, when you've just come out of the sauna, you're in a very soporific, more generous state of mind, and I think that's when a lot of very successful negotiations happened at that point in time.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say that when the Soviet troops turned up, if there was a porch, they could hear them walking and then they could get out of the sauna in time and be like, nothing to see here.
Oh, well, maybe that as well.
Yeah.
Why are you red and steaming?
Yeah. Yeah.
When it's minus 20 outside.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Just doing the laundry.
So in your book, you cover a wide spectrum. So we go through history, cultural aspects of it, and then the bit I kind of alluded to earlier, you've got a bit of a top of the pops bit. Was that tough to do?
No, it wasn't tough to do. I think, well, when you do those kind of top 10 things, you're trying to get different categories of sauna in a way.
Yeah.
So you want a really good city sauna or a really lovely sauna next to a beautiful sea, or so that was how we approached that, really.
Yeah.
And we tried to be quite geographically fair.
Yes. Yeah.
But obviously we spent more time in some places than in others because we had to produce a book really quickly.
Yeah.
So that didn't always work out. I mean, we felt like we barely even scratched the surface, really.
Yeah.
Have to go back and do a few more sequels.
This is book 1, everybody.
Yeah.
Volume 1.
Yeah.
So, the best of, I mean, all of those saunas, I can guarantee if you went and visited them, there'd be amazing experiences, both in terms of the sauna and in terms of the surroundings. What you get outside the sauna, which the cooling off, is quite often it's
an integral part.
It's an integral part of the whole process. Yeah.
And even dining and everything else afterwards, right? It's the
Well, that seems to be a bit of a trend. Was the kind of sauna with the restaurant with the leisure complex sauna, a kind of new concept that seems to be gaining popularity. Yeah. Which obviously makes perfect sense because you're always really hungry when you get out of the sauna as well. So going and having I love the Finnish ritual of having a beer as well after the sauna.
Yeah. Yeah, food, nice drink. I mean, it's about relaxation, and I think that food is an important part of that. But also, you're dehydrated, your minerals are depleted, your body craves that. So, I do get that. Was there any saunas that you sort of learnt about that you didn't get a chance to try that are sort of now? Have you got a sauna bucket list?
There's a sauna in Tallinn we met someone in Helsinki who said that he'd been to a sauna in Tallinn that was about 130 degrees.
Whoa, okay.
And that for some reason this was something he really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And that people was...
But
the
is that
person
on your
next to
bucket
him...
list?
No. The person next to him wasn't moving at all, so he sort of poked him just to check he was still alive. It's not on my bucket list, but I love the idea that anyone would want to go in a sauna that hot.
I think there's one at the Finnish Sauna Society that's 130
really?
As well. They have a really deliberately shallow ladle that's as shallow as the palm of your hand.
It's more like a tablespoon.
So that
right,
you can just go,
can't.
And I was in there. Somebody put that really shallow ladle on, and I just went from the top bench to the bottom bench straight away because it was just...
Well, I've heard that the competitions are still happening.
Underground.
Underground.
It's like Fight Club. They just don't talk about it.
Have you been to any of those?
No.
The first rule of Underground Sauna Club is you don't talk about
it. No. Yeah, of course.
For me, it's about relaxation, and that's all I'll say.
For me, I think I'm possibly the wrong gender for those. Maybe not, but I would assume so.
Who knows? I don't think they exist, right?
No. No, for me it's the same. Probably sort of 70, 80, with like you,
Yeah.
fresh water, a lake, a pond,
That's it.
a river,
That's the
a
dream.
sea.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
If you can get running water, then it really is.
Yeah.
Running cold water,
Yeah.
or even ice plunge water.
Yeah.
That's good as
Avanto.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go.
So there's no specific sauna where you went, "Oh, I've heard about this," or, you know.
I think rayaporti in Tampere,
Mhm.
where you've obviously
I've been, yeah.
which is, I kind of was given a lesson in steam in that sauna
Yeah.
from the sauna master there, who is a German artist who kind of looks after the sauna, and he really explained how the steam works. And because it's such an old sauna with really thick walls, it just has it keeps the heat in, but it's really moist
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
It had a really special steam, and I really then
Yeah, I
understood.
I remember when we went.
You like it?
No, I remember it. I've only been once.
Okay.
We actually visited again, but we didn't go in for a sweat. But it was so intense. There's a lot. The steam. It never felt like it was really fading, and I think I naively put a little bit too much on, and I didn't realise that it's connected the women's sauna and the men's with the heater in the middle. And so I think I owe an apology
You can
to
hear people screaming through the wall next door because so you have to
Running outside.
If it's very democratic in that regard, because like if both of the lids either side of the wall partition are open and somebody starts pouring water in the men's side, all the women also get the same
Same amount.
So
yeah.
it can get really, really hot in
but
there.
The biggest drawback for that place for me was that it wasn't somewhere where you could go plunge in a body of water.
That's
But
true.
What a place, the history and the vibe.
So
and
the oldest sauna
community
in
spirit.
Finland, isn't it?
So they say.
So they-
yeah.
so they say,
Well, it's the
yes.
oldest continually open commercial sauna. So they say.
So they say.
I'm sure, as I say, I've been to a lot of these special. This is the oldest. This is the biggest. This is the. And then somebody else down the road goes, nah, this one's older, or this one's bigger, or whatever.
But is it true that Tampere is the sauna capital of the world?
That per square meter has more saunas than anywhere else on the planet. So they say. So I mean,
They don't say that in every Finnish city that you visit.
Well, so Tampere is the second city of Finland, and I feel like Helsinki has quite a lot, but Tampere probably benefits from slightly lower costs of land, cost of space, so you can have more of those commercial ones. And then Turku, which is the sort of third known city, and Jyväskylä, they're a lot smaller, so there won't be as many. But I don't know, because if you look at Helsinki, for example, where you've got apartment blocks and tower blocks, and some of those have got many saunas in them, and some of them just have one big communal sauna. So I trust that somebody somewhere has done the research and that is the case.
One of the trips Maija went on, which unfortunately I couldn't go with her, was up to Lapland in December, because we shot the book over all 4 seasons deliberately, obviously to get different visual backgrounds. And she found lots of ice saunas welded onto lakes. Some of them were on skis.
Yeah.
She met some of the sauna makers who were carving with huge chainsaws blocks of ice out of the lakes, and then building these saunas. And then
Out of ice.
Have you been in those?
No. So that's definitely on the bucket list.
Yes, that's on my bucket. You asked me my bucket list. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Lapland ice sauna.
Saunas, nice.
And
For sure.
You mentioned the 4 seasons. Is there an ideal season or weather condition that, in your minds? I know it's very subjective, but do you have a favourite?
Ooh, probably winter.
Yeah. You like the snow and
But
ice.
actually, Maija says September, October is the best time.
Yeah.
That's what that in her opinion.
Mine's August, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because if you're in Finland, June is when all of the mosquitoes
Yes, that's true.
birth, I guess. So you get a lot more mosquitoes. July, all the Finns are on holiday. So anybody who doesn't know, Finland basically shuts down for all of July because they have such a short, intense summer. And so that I tend not to go there because I can't go there for work to meet suppliers because they're all off in their summer cabins and you can't rent a summer cabin anywhere. So August for me, I like it because it's reminiscent of like a summer camp by a lake kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Very relaxed. You can be outdoors and not be too mobbed by mosquitoes. But the Finnish winter comes hard and fast. And if you're, if you go to central Finland in September, they're always at least 2 months closer to winter than we are. Like at least. So if you go somewhere in September, expect to wear a winter coat because it's going to be like late November weather. And then in late November, they almost have a middle 2 months that don't exist anywhere else. It's like deep winter. We don't have that.
No, exactly. Well, I did my last sauna. That last time I was in Finland was in November, and it was in one of the beach clubs, swimming clubs in Helsinki, and they have their own sauna. And we swam in the sea, and it was still not frozen, luckily. Was
it snowing? Snow on the ground?
Sleeting. It was, but the water was very cold, but it hadn't yet frozen.
Yeah.
But they carve their ice hole there. The swimmers from the swimming club, but they carve their ice hole, and they have their kettle in the little bit outside the sauna, and it's all very well set up.
Yeah.
And I was very jealous because I wish we had that here.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the sea doesn't freeze here, but they have to come up with these inventions like pumps that keep the water moving and coils to keep it heated as well. So I'll bring it back to the book now. So you've got the forewords by Mikael Arland, who was obviously on the podcast a few podcasts ago. Really fascinating guy. Wrote the original book. It covers all aspects of sauna culture, Top of the Pops, which I'm sure you'll get all kinds of people going, no way, the contentious element of it, which I'm really excited to see how that's received. So when's it released? Where can people find it? And if they want to learn more, where do they look?
Okay, so it's out on the 14th of September.
Yep.
And you can buy it, you can pre-order it now on Amazon. And if you do that, you can enter a competition for a weekend away.
Excellent.
At a Sussex, a cabin in Sussex with a sauna in the woods.
Fantastic.
Which is quite a nice offer, I would say, by Architects Holiday.
Yep.
Just promote them as well. And then it's, out on the 14th of September.
Yes.
And you can find more on my website.
Which is?
emmaokelly.co.uk.
Perfect.
Yes. And I think
we'll also sell it in the book section on our website. I'll just get that out there. So, if you can buy it on Amazon, but you can also buy it from us, which is great. Unfortunately, though, I can't send you off to a cabin in the woods, which...
you might be able to one day.
One day. But if you buy the book, then, we'll talk about it. So excellent. Thank you so much again for coming on. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
and
it's been a pleasure.
When Volume 2 comes out,
well, maybe you can help me with the best of.
Don't put me on the spot there. I feel like I'm quite decisive, but if you ask me anything to do with sauna, my response will always be it depends. So.
Yes, like the stoves.
Yes, exactly.
Which is the best stove?
The best stove? It depends. That's the truth. Thanks so much again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.